Hi friends, welcome to Creative DIY Purpose. This week I have some thrifted finds for you. We've got some beautiful vintage treasures and a few items that we're going to be upcycling. We've got a lot to do, so come on, let's get started. I went out to two different thrift stores and found one wooden stool for $15. I passed on that and went to the next thrift store and found this one for only $3. Nice solid wood and very sturdy. I picked up some nautical rope a few months back from the Dollar Tree, and I like how you can split it apart so that you end up with thinner pieces and a lot more of it. I sanded the entire stool down, painted it with some white acrylic paint, distressed the edges, and then taking the rope and wrapping them around two rungs of the stool. It was a super easy project, just wrapping that rope around. I believe I used 3 to 4 of the Dollar Tree ropes. I did use some of the scraps that I had on hand first, so that's why I don't have an accurate amount. I didn't want the ends of the rope to show, so as I completed one rope, I knotted it off in between, so that way it was tucked and hidden. And I do cut those ends off and always try to make sure that I'm towards the back of the stool. That way it stays tucked and hidden, and you can always tag it down with some E6000. I thought of turning the top into more like a table, maybe adding a pizza pan or a silver plated tray, but I did decide in the end to leave it as a stool, so that way my daughter can use it if she needs extra seating in her art room. I applied DIY clear wax to the entire stool. I did let the clear wax sit on for probably about a half hour, then came back, wiped it down with a clean cloth, and decided it needed a coat of the DIY white wax on the top to help it blend in a little bit better with the rest of the stool. I applied a very generous coat and again let it sit down for about a half hour, came back in and wiped it back, and that was exactly what it needed. When the stool is not in use, it's usually holding her little mini fan, but the added shelves will hold her little books and her art treasures. Let me know what you guys think of this project. All right, so I'm really excited. I found these at two different thrift stores. I know that I probably overpaid for them. When I ran a Google search, they both showed up as pink depression wear. That little candy dish runs around the $20 range. I found quite a few of those. However, I call it a clover, was only able to find, I believe, 2 or 3 of them, and they ran around the $30 price range. I did not do much research, so if you do know anything about these pieces, let me know. And I was wondering if they're made from Anchor Hocking. All right, so now we're going to get into an upcycled mirror. I had this sitting in my closet, oh my gosh, for actually a year now, and it just has a plastic frame, and I have been waiting for an idea how to upcycle it. And I found this clay mold on Amazon. It had a lot of detail and thinner pieces, but I took some advice from Kathy over on the channel, Crafty Kathy. She puts her molds with the clay in the freezer for a little bit, and it worked out perfect. I think I might have left these in for maybe a little too long, about 15 minutes, but they thawed right out, and I was really happy with the way that they turned out. It was super easy to use. I brushed on some cornstarch, then kneaded some of the air dried clay just so it would be nice and smooth. And once I pressed it into the mold, I found that it was a lot easier to take one of the tools and quickly run it over the top just to make it a little smoother. Then once I had both of the trims done for the top and bottom of the mirror, I applied them on with some E6000 while the clay was still pretty damp. Then I'm going to use some of the white wicker paint from Folk Art. It's acrylic paint. I paid $1 each from Walmart. I applied 2 coats onto the mirror and was surprised at the full coverage that I got. I did add a little bit of baking soda because I wanted almost a look of plaster. So I wanted a little bit of texture. I just remember in my grandmother's home seeing something that had that scroll work on it, and I can't remember if it was a mirror or a picture frame. And I could just remember as a kid it had a lot of texture, and the only thing I could think of is that it was made from plaster. I mean, we're going off of memory from probably about 30, 40, my gosh, a long time ago. So I really wanted to keep this piece white, but I wanted to just add a little more depth and bring out some of the details in the scroll work. Just applying a very light brush of the DIY dark wax. I did not apply clear wax on first, which I normally would do just in case I get heavy-handed. But I did end up going over any areas that I felt were dark with just a dry brush of that white wicker paint. And that worked out really well and helped give it a nice layered aged look. I'll probably seal it with some brush on polyacrylic, and I just need to find the perfect spot to hang it in. I will definitely share that with you guys as I refinish a lot of my furniture in my home. The next vintage finds, it might actually be vintage, but they're definitely got that vintage vibe to them. I couldn't find a date of manufacture anywhere online. I did see them listed on Etsy as vintage, but I believe that they consider 20 years or older to be vintage. So I'm unsure, but I thought they were beautiful nonetheless. I was excited to find the set of 3. Most of the ones that I saw online were listed separate. I believe that I found one listing with all 3 that I have. The set is from Baum Brothers, and I think that I've had a couple vases from them sell prior, but I thought they were really pretty, and I will be putting those up for sale. All right, we're going to do an upcycle project for these bowls. You've probably seen them in previous videos where we made a candle out of one of them, and now we're going to do little faux terracotta pots, and then we're going to age them with some whitewash. I did spray them with some sealer first just to get the paint to adhere and not peel off, and that worked really well. And I did add a little bit of baking soda to that paint before I applied it to give it some texture. Now I want to bring that texture out. I'm applying some of the white wicker acrylic paint that I used on the mirror to help bring out some of the texture. At this point, I really didn't have too much of a plan, so I'm just applying it on. And then I took some black paint and kind of dry brushed it on. But I realized that when the black paint dried, it kind of looked more like mold to me. So I do go over and fix that with some brown mineral paint. Now on this other bowl, I'm kind of doing it sloppy. I did more of a water mixture, and I'm applying this on, and then I do go back and apply a second coat. I took some moss paint from Waverly and to a cloth, and I'm kind of dabbing that around the midsection to the base of this one pot. All right, so here is where I think it looked a little bit more like mold or mildew, so I didn't like that look. So I am applying some more of the white paint on, and then I don't show it, but I do the same technique with the mineral paint from Waverly. I applied 2 coats of the Rust-Oleum spray sealer. And then I did have some thrifted greenery that I tucked in there with some Spanish moss and added a doily. And then for this one, I added a little white painted terracotta pot. and just put a faux candle in there. But I thought that that would look really nice to add like white rocks instead of the greenery. But you could just add just about anything you want in there, even some florals. All right, so my next vintage find was this sweet little gravy boat. I have a fascination with gravy boats. And I think I have sold more gravy boats than I have any other type of vintage items. And this is fine china from Japan. When I looked up this pattern, I found a couple in the $30 to $35 price range. And this one I'll be listing for sale as well. So I went to a church sale and found these homemade doilies. If you saw last week's video, you'll see where I took one and put it in a frame. I want to keep those. I'm still on the fence, but I thought that those little coasters would look so sweet if you had like a tea party. And I might keep that one too, just because I like the unique design. But I think that they are all so beautiful. And I want to show you guys when we get up to the bigger one. It might be that one. I think there's two just like that. And I thought that was really pretty too. So I will be selling some of these, but I do want to keep, I think it's this one. What do you guys think about taking that one and making it like into a pillow? Maybe sewing a round white pillow and then tacking the doily along the outside. You guys, let me know what you think. Friends, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you're having a super blessed summer. I will see you next week, and God bless.